The clock is ticking in Washington as the US nears a potential government shutdown. Lawmakers remain deadlocked, with Republicans seeking a short-term extension and Democrats demanding protections for healthcare and federal programs. The White House has warned of permanent layoffs, raising uncertainty for millions of federal workers. With the September 30th deadline looming, the nation braces for a political showdown that could disrupt essential services. As the United States edges closer to a potential government shutdown, negotiations in Washington show little sign of compromise. A last-minute meeting at the White House between President Donald Trump and top Democratic leaders yielded few breakthroughs, with both sides entrenched in their positions. Vice President J.D. Vance told reporters that the country is headed toward a shutdown because the Democrats will not do the right thing. He argued that Republicans are simply seeking to extend current spending levels while allowing time to negotiate without threatening government operations.
I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing.
Democratic Senate Leader Chuck Schumer said the two sides still face significant differences, though he noted that the meeting allowed the president to hear Democratic objections directly. Schumer emphasized that the outcome is ultimately in Republican hands, but warned that Democrats remain committed to protecting critical programs, particularly funding for low-income health insurance subsidies set to expire at the end of the year.
It's up to the Republicans whether they want to shut down or not. Their bill has not one iota of Democratic input. That is never how we've done this before. If the president at this meeting is going to rant and just yell at Democrats and talk about all his alleged grievances and say this, that, and the other thing, we won't get anything done. But my hope is it'll be a serious negotiation.
House Speaker Mike Johnson argued that Democrats' demands have complicated the process, claiming that Senate Democrats presented a list of partisan conditions that cannot fit into a stopgap funding measure. The Speaker urged a pragmatic approach to keep the government operational, suggesting that further delay would serve political interests rather than the public.
Chuck Schumer came back with a long laundry list of partisan demands that don't fit into this process, and he's going to try to shut the government down. The president wants to talk with him about that and say, please don't do that.
Republicans advocate a short-term funding extension, content with the Trump administration's ongoing spending cuts. Democrats, however, question the administration's unilateral reductions and argue that without guarantees, essential services could be compromised. The political calculus is complicated further by public perception. The party viewed as obstructing funding often bears the brunt of responsibility in the event of a shutdown. With a record-setting 35-day closure during Trump's first term still fresh in memory, the stakes are high. Both parties appear prepared for a political showdown, leaving millions of Americans uncertain about the continuity of federal programs. The coming days will test whether negotiation, compromise, or partisan strategy determines the course of government operations. The White House has directed federal agencies to prepare for permanent layoffs in programs deemed non-essential if funding lapses, marking a significant escalation from previous shutdowns, where employees were temporarily furloughed. The Office of Management and Budget issued a memo detailing reduction in force notices for workers in programs without dedicated funding, raising the stakes for federal employees nationwide. Amid these warnings, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries have remained firm. They emphasized that Democrats are ready to negotiate anywhere and at any time to secure a bipartisan spending agreement. Both leaders stressed the urgency of protecting millions of Americans who rely on federal programs, including healthcare support and essential services, highlighting the human impact of a potential shutdown. On the other side, Senate Majority Leader John Thune and other Republican lawmakers continue to push for a clean resolution. They argue that adding policy provisions or riders to the funding bill would only create delays and increase the risk of a government shutdown, urging Democrats to focus on a straightforward short-term extension to maintain federal operations. As the September 30th deadline arrives, both parties are under intense pressure. The coming hours will determine whether federal programs continue uninterrupted or millions of Americans face uncertainty over essential services and federal support. A federal government shutdown occurs when Congress fails to pass all 12 appropriations bills or a short-term continuing resolution to maintain funding. In such cases, non-essential programs are paused, while essential services, including Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, military operations, immigration enforcement, and air traffic control, remain operational. During past shutdowns, hundreds of thousands of federal employees have been furloughed or required to work without pay. Agencies like the IRS, the Small Business Administration, and housing assistance programs have experienced significant disruptions. The impact is felt beyond government workers. Private sector contractors, dependent on federal payments, often face delayed income, and essential services for the public may be slowed or suspended. The economic consequences can be far-reaching. Markets may experience instability, consumer confidence can erode, and overall economic growth may slow. The most recent major shutdown in 2018 and 2019 lasted 35 days, delaying roughly $18 billion in federal spending. Many of those funds were never fully recovered, highlighting the cost of political deadlock in Washington. Lawmakers are under pressure to pass a short-term funding extension as the deadline arrives. Failure to act would trigger the third shutdown under the Trump administration. This year, the stakes are higher. The White House has directed agencies to prepare for permanent reductions in staffing and program funding in affected areas. With millions of Americans depending on government services, the coming hours will determine whether programs continue uninterrupted or millions face uncertainty over access to critical federal support.